Tim James, big act to follow in Gladys Berejiklian, doesn't he?
Indeed, Kieran, that's already starting to play out in a swing against Tim James. Gladys held this seat with a margin of 21%. It's already being eroded according to the early postal counting. I have with me the member for Coringai, Alister. Henskens, Alister, anything to worry about? 13.4, 12% on a two-party preferred basis.
Look, Adam, I took over from a former Premier myself, Barry O'Farrell, in 2015, and there was a substantial swing against me, even in the context of a general election. And I think the big thing is that whenever you walk into the shoes of a former Premier, everyone in the state knows who the Premier is. You're battling to get name recognition. I think actually Tim's result is in fact very similar to mine on the current numbers. It's about a 12% two-party preferred swing. That's well under the usual by-election swing. It'll still mean that the seat is held by about 11% margin. So I think it's a strong result. I've seen Tim out on the hustings. People are relating very well to him. I'm pretty confident that he'll establish himself very strongly as a member.
Dominic Perrottet seemed very realistic about this very prospect, predicting the swing of between 10 and 15%. It's within the range, but at the bottom end. But as you said, a Telegraph poll's a lot different from the front page of the telly every day.
Exactly. And look, the sense on the ground was that there weren't baseball bats for the government. Going around people, talking to them, they were appreciative of the challenges that this government has had. I mean, in this term of government, we've had drought, bushfires, floods and a global pandemic. It's been a really difficult time to be in government, but I think people understand that. And I think the result under the usual by-election swing of 15% is a very encouraging result on the current numbers.
It seems like most of those votes are drifting to a single issue, independent, opposing the Northern Beaches Tunnel. But putting that to one side, a lot was said about how this Super Saturday could be an adjudication on how the Premier is travelling with COVID. To what extent do you think that is coming into play with the electorate here in Willoughby?
Well, that hasn't been what I've been hearing on the ground. There hasn't been, as I said, baseball bats for the government or criticism of the Premier's performance. I think what we see here is a usual by-election swing, together with the fact that we had an enormously popular local member, long-standing in Gladys Berejiklian. Everybody knew who she was. She was enormously popular. It takes time for your candidate to build that kind of recognition in the electorate. And if the figures that we're seeing now are ultimately played out, I think it'll be a very strong result for Tim James.
Do you think this trend will stick?
Well, look, the big uncertainty is obviously the postal votes and so on. It is an election like no other, look, the crowd here are getting very enthusiastic about Tim's numbers coming in.
Okay, Alister, thanks so much for your time. Kieran, someone with a lot of empathy with Tim James as the replacement for former Premier Barry O'Farrell.